Good evening. I'm Mary Pat Higgins. I'm the president and the CEO of the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Funk Family Upstander Speaker Series with our featured guest, Jeanne Celestine Lakin. I'd like to start by thanking our Anchor Series sponsors, IMA Financial and IMA Foundation. Also, I would like to thank our Anchor Series sponsors Match Group, the Texas Historical Commission, and the Texas Holocaust, Genocide, and Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission. We sincerely appreciate your ongoing support of the Funk Family Upstander Speaker Series. I also have some community partners I'd like to thank: Hope Supply Company, Jewish Federation of Greater Dallas, the Legacy Senior Communities, Temple Shalom, and the Vickery Meadow Youth Development Foundation. We're so grateful to partner with such fantastic organizations. Please help me thank our sponsors and our community partners. And as always, I'd like to give a warm welcome to our board members, our museum members, volunteers, and generations members. Thank you for your ongoing support of the museum. We couldn't do programs like this without you. If you're in the audience and you're not a museum member or a volunteer and would like to get engaged, please check out our website and really connect with us. We would love to get you engaged and have you start coming to more of these programs. You can go to our website, which is DHHRM, it's the initials of the museum.org. The Funk Family Upstander Speaker Series is named in loving memory of Blanche and Max Goldberg and Fanny and Isaac Funk. It was created to highlight upstanders, or individuals and organizations who take actions and stand up for the rights of others and combat injustice, inequality, or unfairness. Jeanne embodies these qualities, and we are very grateful to host her this evening. Our museum was founded by Holocaust survivors in 1984. They understood the dangers of unchecked hatred. And in 1994, over 850,000 Rwandans were massacred in a genocide when the Hutu extremist-led government launched a plan to wipe out the country's entire Tutsi minority and others who opposed their policies. The 100-day genocide was carried out with meticulous organization, and it remains a stark reminder of the dangers of polarization and extremism. If you haven't gone through our permanent exhibition on the third floor, I hope you'll come back and do that. In our human rights wing, there's a gallery that teaches about the process of genocide through the 10 stages of genocide, and we use the Rwandan genocide to help people understand the process of polarization. Tonight, 31 years after the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis, we remember the victims and honor the survivors. We are so fortunate to have our very special guest with us tonight, Jeanne Celestine Lakin, to help share her story and teach us about this history. Jeanne survived the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis as a young girl, fleeing violent militias with her siblings and living in the wilderness at just 9 years of age. By the age of 14, Jeanne was studying English in an American school, grappling with the traumatic experiences from her past while striving to create a better future. Her path of resilience and education led her to earn not only a bachelor's degree in international relations, but also a master's degree in public administration and public policy. She was just giving me advice about what my son should do when he grows up. Today, Jeanne serves as the chair of the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights International Survivors of Trafficking, an advisory council, acting as a formidable force against global human trafficking. Her contributions have influenced high-level United Nations events, furthering the cause of justice on an international stage. She also helped establish the nonprofit 1 Million Orphans, providing sustainable education support to some of the most vulnerable children around the globe. We'll have time for questions after Jeanne's and my conversation. So as usual, please write your questions on the note cards and our staff will come around to pick them up, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. And I'd also like to ask now that you silence your cell phones so we can enjoy this conversation without disruption. It's now my honor to invite Jeanne to the stage. I've really, after reading Jeanne's book, had a lot of personal questions for her that some of you may want to ask after tonight. We won't cover everything, but there's so much that we would like to know. We can start, Jeanne, can you tell us what you remember about your childhood with your family growing up in the outskirts of Nyanza?
First, I want to thank you. Sorry, my voice is a bit loud. I want to thank you for having me here. I say to myself after surviving Rwandan genocide against Tutsis that I will do the best I can to make sure that my life is not a waste. So to be in a place where I can actually help to educate, to create an awareness is to me is a blessing. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank our audience for being here tonight. I know you care. That's why you're here, right? But to walk you back to being in Rwanda in 1994, being a 9-year-old, I remember so much. My son turns 9 next week. But it's that age where you're just like a sponge. Everything, you just kind of soak it in. And I have so many fond memories being in Rwanda, being with my family. On my father's side, we actually lived so close by. My aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, many cousins. So it really felt, there was a sense of love. There was a sense of community, togetherness. And being in a countryside, if you all don't know, it's nice and quiet. And back then, there was just really no electronics, no social media. So we could actually play and use our mind to think outside of the box. We were challenged to be creative. But I remember just running in the field with my twin sister, Jeanette, and grew up in a family of 13. My parents were married prior, both had other siblings, but between my mom and dad, they had 10 children together, so that made us 13 and 3 sets of twins.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Such a large family. So you learn how to share at that age. But my father was...
and you were in the middle?
I was actually probably up at the top, the fourth.
The fourth, okay.
The fourth after the twins. And then was me and my twin sister, Jeanette. My dad was elected by the people in the community as a mediator. And it wasn't because he had a degree. He wasn't a lawyer at all, but he just embodied this humanity where people who had issues, whether it was disputes about land or marriage, what have you, he will be the one to counsel the people. So very much respected. Both my parents did a lot of work in our community, and I think the way they showed love was really to serve in the community. So that's the kind of memory that I have. I also remember running away from home, going to grandparents' house, because if I made a mistake, you're not there, follow me there.
So really an idyllic, very loving family, very religious and faithful. Were there warning signs that you looking back now that were precursors to the genocide? When did you start feeling the tension and seeing those signs?
there were very few signs. In the very few signs, segregation. So we were segregated in schools. I was a fourth grader, and I remember having one of my teachers, he walked in and said, the Tutsis are going to be seated on this side, and the Hutus and Twa are going to be seated on the other side, even at that very early age. And
But that hadn't happened before?
no,
Okay.
no, that has not happened before. There were also conversations by our neighbors who said, well, we'll take away everything you have. And as a child, to me, I thought, taking the stuff, taking the, possessions. But it didn't register until the genocide that they were actually taking lives. So the signs were very few. You started seeing like kind of standoffish of being open to. We had many people come to our house, people that we shared Christmas and, Easter Sundays, kind of slowing down and coming and having those celebrations. So we kind of tell something. I mean, even at home, my parents went from being this vibrant, family to kind of like more quiet. Conversation were being held away from where we were, and you could tell something was just off.
And as your parents understood what was happening, they had hoped for you all to flee to Burundi, right? But when that didn't happen and the genocide started to occur, what are some of your early memories of that? Were the Hutu neighbors that had been sort of part of your community helpful to you?
When you think about a genocide, it just, even up to this day, so I just turned 40. And being a 9-year-old, then I didn't understand how not only standoffish, but the signs of it. Having our neighbors, when the genocide, leading to the genocide, there was political parties, movements, it's like the group, they have meetings that the Tutsis were not allowed to go into. These meetings were happening every single week, but no Tutsi will be allowed. Now, because of the kind of work my parents did in the community, the way they embraced everyone despite race, they will come back. The Hutu will go to these meetings and come back and tell my parents what they learned. And like you said, the genocide was orchestrated in a way. It was planned, carefully organized. Our names had already been given away. Our locations had already been given away. The genocide, in order to take place, they had to basically brainwash the people's mind. And that was by creating the propaganda campaigns. Mm-hmm. And the propaganda campaigns were on the radios, on TV, they were printed in the newspapers. And so to go from being a Tutsi, be part of the human family, to now being called the cockroaches, just like the same way that, obviously the Jewish people were referred to as rats. Right. In Rwanda, we were the snakes, we were the cockroaches. What shocked me, though, was how quickly these neighbors, these families that we cherish, how they changed their mind, how quickly they embodied this notion that we're no longer humans. And we were called every name, all the pejorative names, everything that stripped away our humanity. And that's what made the genocide possible. Also, the ideology of hate. You started seeing it from kids, started seeing it from, the adults. It was the quick mind change to me up to this day. I still ask myself, how?
Well, and your even relatives, like your Aunt Jeanette, who was married to a Hutu, couldn't keep you. Was that because her husband had been brainwashed, or was it because it was dangerous?
That's a very good question. That I don't know. She was, I thought maybe she was afraid for her life. Yeah. Because this is what the the government did in Rwanda. They basically would say, if you're hiding a Tutsi in your home, and they find out that you're actually hiding a Tutsi, they will either make you kill the person you're hiding, or they will have you and your family. That's why we had over 1 million people dying, because even the Maori Hutus who did not buy into these ideologies, they were also hunted. So it was either you participate or you are on the other side. So my aunt, her husband was actually participating in the genocide too. So that could explain why she, and that's blood, really. I mean, her children, my parents took care of them. Along with all the other children, my parents paid for, school fees. They fed orphans. They, provided food, financial support, all of that. But how quickly people's mind changed was just mind-boggling.
Right. That must have, and as a 9-year-old, what did that kind of desertion feel like?
It really felt like a betrayal. It felt like a sense of betrayal. But now I look back and go, wow. How could this have happened? I couldn't wrap my mind around how people's sort of went on the other side. I mean, we were looked at where we have long foreheads, we have narrow nose, we have long limbs. I'm like, it's all the human,
Right.
As God is creation, I thought, well, there were some Hutus who were tall, there were some Tutsis who were short. And to be born into a family, now you're being persecuted because of the way you're being created, because of this racial identification that we have now. It was hard to kind of trace, and for me, as much as I felt like betrayed, I still ask myself, the people we cherished good moments, singing on Christmas days and spending days and celebrating, to see how fast they basically would be the ones to turn us to the killers, to say we'll take everything, because the government promised them that if you kill them, you can actually take all their possessions, you can take over. And the definition of a snake, I don't know about you, but I'm afraid of snakes. Even hiding in the bushes, it was one of the things that terrified me. But so other people understood that we were dangerous. The cockroaches, no matter how many times you try to kill the cockroaches, if you ever had any of those in your home, to equate us to the danger of animals or to less than human, the dehumanization is what made it possible. And they really spent months prior to the genocide, they spent so much time making sure that the Hutu families understood that.
In the early days of the genocide, your father split the children up to try to, he knew you would have a better chance of surviving that way. So you spent the next several months living outside, hidden in the bush or in the woods, in the fields, but you weren't alone on this journey. You had your 3-year-old twin sisters, Teddy and Tita, with you. So as a child yourself, how in the world were you able to care for 3-year-olds who really didn't have a sense and understanding? In the book, I think they developed that understanding pretty quickly. Children are amazing. But how did you comfort them and keep them quiet, and how did you survive?
It was tough. To say the least, it was the toughest. Many of you in the room, you probably have children or have grandchildren. To go from having a beautiful home, living in a family where you're taken care of, being in a family where you're allowed to eat 3 meals a day or more, and a few snacks in between, to having to go from all of that to living in the swamps, in the bushes. I want all of you for a second, close your eyes. Don't be traumatized. This is not going to be too traumatic. Close your eyes Imagine it is Sunday afternoon. Maybe you came from church or you're done with all your activities. And you're home. And out of the sudden, somebody said, you have to pick up and leave. And where you're going is actually not a destination that you choose to go. You're going to be hiding in the bushes for your life. For the next 3 months, you are in the bushes, and you took only what you had on you. You didn't go back in your bedroom to pick up a sweater. You didn't go back to pick up a blanket. You just have to leave the house. And for the next 3 months, you're living in the bushes. And by the way, the bushes, you find the big one, the most looking, the most dangerous looking, because you have to find a bush that most people wouldn't presume that human will go in there. So if you find one that is a see-through, you will be spotted.
Right.
So you're finding one that is deep, that is healthy. That's, in our words, was the healthy bush. Mm-hmm. And there's thorns. So now you can open your eyes. If you left your home with shorts, that's all you had for 3 months. If you had a white clothes, God forbid, you'll be quickly spotted because you're running. Those bushes, a few times they would send dogs into the bushes. A few times they would actually pour petroleum, burn the bushes. And so for me, I was guided by the book. The title of the book is A Voice in the Darkness. There was this whisper of move from this bush, go to the next one. And sometimes you hop in between 5 bushes, and a lot of times you don't have the freedom to move in the middle of the day. You have to wait in the middle of the night. And so having twins to explain to 3-year-old that we had to be in this environment, and outside the bushes, they were killing people. So you're hearing women, men, and children being hunted and killed right there. And so those are the memories still archived in our minds. And the twins kept asking questions. Why did you kidnap us? They thought I kidnapped them, that I had a choice. Why? They were so tired. At first I was like, we are doing camping activities. And they were so tired of the camping activities. And you can only imagine having to draw all day. The only thing, we had no crayons, we had no toys. We had to play with the stick figures, and there's so much you could do with stick figure until they're like, oh no, we're not doing this. So it was really hard to help them understand that the danger. And after being in the bushes with them, at one point I watched my father being hacked with machetes and clubs, and witnessed my mother's dead body with our 3-week-old little brother. And this whole time they're asking, I want to go see my mommy. And that was, to me, my life itself just, shattered right in front of me. And the more they asked to go see mom and dad, and when I knew that they were dead, that was tough. But I felt like I had a responsibility. I had the fact that they were alive, I felt like I had a purpose to live for them. At one point in the book, they say, they thank me for saving their lives, for keeping them safe. But in return, they actually kept me alive. Right. Because I just don't imagine what my life would have been like if I didn't have them. I think I would have probably given up on life without them. So they gave me the purpose. So find your purpose.
You helped each other. Absolutely. So you lived in the bush for several months, and then you write in your book that after a few months of living outside, you heard on the radio that all Tutsi women and children were to be forgiven for their sins and that they could return to their houses. But this was false. It was a ploy to get them to come out, but you didn't know that. So you were brave enough to go to the mayor's home of your village to confirm that the genocide was over. And he sent you and your sisters directly towards a squad of men that kidnapped you. In the months you were held prisoner, What got you through each day?
It was prayer. It was prayer, a lot of prayers. I prayed in those months when everything is being stripped away from you, all your support, all your sources, resources. You could do two things. Either you turn away from God, I turned towards God. And so I did a lot of praying, and as you confirmed, I grew up in a Christian family, so they taught us how to pray. But at this time, I really prayed, and asked God to give me the strength to deal with what was happening. Many of you might not know this, but in Rwanda, just like any other genocides or any other conflicts, war-torn zone places, rape is used as a weapon of war. And in Rwanda, same. UN documented that between 250 to 500,000 women and girls had been raped in the genocide against the Tutsis. So being raped as a child and having to stay in such environment, I was just saying, God, please give me the strength, give me the courage to really deal with, to endure this pain. It was blurry, it was confusing, it was not only just like the sexual abuse, but just the actually like the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, all kinds of abuse. And so my prayer was really to come out of that, not be hardened by such experience.
Right.
So it was really a lot of like praying and keeping my eyes on the fact that my sisters were still alive. At one point in the almost at the end of the genocide, this man he took the twins away from me, and after that there was part of me that just got lost. But I kept praying, hoping that there would be. He said he actually killed them, and which like made me so upset. And I remember trying to fight with him, and but yeah, they're alive.
So strong. In your book, you said, unlike a spigot on a faucet, genocide cannot turn off in a second, a day, a week, or even a month. So I guess officially the genocide lasted 100 days. But after that, once the killing subsided, you found yourself a young Tutsi surrounded by Hutus, some of whom had murdered hundreds of people. As you travel to Congo now as a refugee with this man and his family, and your sisters were not with you at this point, it was just you. What was the atmosphere like? Was there some relief from the genocide? Was it still terrifying every second?
It was hellish experience. It was really, even though we have the Rwandan Patriotic Front who were in the exile in Uganda. Now this is like months of killing. Now these Tutsi rebels with like Marore Hutus, they're fighting to get back into Rwanda to see if they can save the very few that were Tutsis that had left. And so now you have people who have participated in the genocide. Now they're running away. They're fleeing the country because they're afraid of what the new government is going to do. Obviously, they were afraid of being in prison. And so because I was with this man in his home, and he said, he kept, prophesying that I was the one and only Tutsi left in the country. And therefore, I was worth a lot of money. To the point he tried to sell me off multiple times, actually. And so even being in the refugee camp as I'm fleeing with these people, the mindset did not change.
Right.
Their mentality of killing did not change. They kept in the refugee camps trying to flush out, that was like the word, to flush out the Tutsis who might be among the Hutus. And so there's this incident right before I cross over to in the Congo by Nyabarongo River. And I'm being found and with other Tutsi who ended up in the refugee camp. Because sometimes the Tutsis will go because they've been told, you have no other choice, you have to go. Right. So as we were there by the refugee camp, I remember I was carrying these like little twigs on my head, trying to disguise myself that I'm not a Tutsi, trying to hide my face that they won't see the nose or the forehead. And by that time, I even talk about skinny, I was like skin and bones. And this group of people, they started chanting that there's another Tutsi. So they spotted me, but they have other Tutsis already lined up. Mm-hmm. And they say, you little something, get in line with it, you other Tutsi, people. But I'm just trying to just keep my head straight, not engage, hoping that they're not talking to me, kind of looking at them, but not really trying to keep an eye away. And their voices was thousands and thousands of people chanting to get me in line. I remember I got in line, they killed every single one of the people in front of me. And it was my turn. And just like they butchered everybody else, threw their bodies in the Nyabarongo River, they pushed me on the ground, raised their machetes. And I remember being on the ground and just praying again. I'm like, God, you saved me for 3 months. Spare me one more time. And once I was right there on the ground, I hear this woman. And now there's thousands of refugees in this camp, thousands and thousands. I hear this woman. It's almost like everything else became silent. This woman screaming and saying, that's my daughter, that's my child, that's my daughter. And I'm thinking, no, she's going to calm down. She's going to look at my face and realize that I'm not her daughter. She probably, in my mind, I thought she was her daughter. She looks at me on the ground. She's like, that's my child. Oh my goodness. So the men, they pick me, they stood me up, and they took me on one side. They bring this woman, and they take her on the other side. They had to verify if what she was saying was true. So in Rwanda, we had racial identification card. So you carry your driver's license, you have your race, your your Tutsi or Hutu Twa in that card. This woman, she gives them my name. I actually told them, because I was doing my own, they were doing investigation on the other side. I told them that my name was Jeanne Omutoni Wase, which Jeanne is my first name, but Omutoni Wase is my nickname. My father gave me because it means daddy's girl. That's what I gave them. Find out that that's exactly what was written in this woman's identification card. Oh my goodness. The same age, same location, and then they brought me back to her and threw me right in her hands. So many times I escaped death. Wow. So many times. And so being in that refugee camp, really, the mindset did not change. Even the people who have killed, they were being disturbed by the people that they killed. To the point like they started running around saying, oh yeah, the kids that we killed, the children that we killed. There was a man who was obsessed with me that he wanted to, kill me. He said, I want to make her the 400 person on the list. And so, but, again, God protected me. Her family ended up killing him right there where I was sitting instead of him killing me. So God spared me so many times.
Oh my goodness. And there were a few family members that were sympathetic, at least. But that very, very few instances of people offering to help.
Right. Or I love children, y'all. The children are just, they don't see race. The kids, the Hutu children, they will hide hot potatoes in their clothes and come and find me and share that with me. There were a few other Hutus, Maori Hutus, who really were shaken by this experience, who wanted to provide comfort, provide kindness, and that's why I kept my, my humanity, intact, because you see even in such a dire situation, you see some people who still embodied humanity.
That you realized that you couldn't stay with these people, that it was too dangerous, and were brave enough to leave and head back for Rwanda all on your own. And I think you followed some people, but somehow you made it back to where you grew up, right? And then eventually realized no one was there, but were able to go to the city and reunite with your siblings. Can you tell us about that, about what happened, how they survived quickly, and what it was like, after being by yourself for so long, to see them?
Those were beautiful answered prayers for months. It was reuniting with my family. Right before I ran from Congo, this man was negotiating to sell me in marriage at the age of 10. And so I said, absolutely not. God did not spare my life to be married at a 10-year-old. But he was promised a lot of money. So I hear the conversation, and then in the middle of the night, got up and I started walking. I didn't know whether, west, east, south. I still don't know. I still don't most of the time. But I ran back to Rwanda, and I went to the location where we used to live. I mean, it was everybody, my aunts and my uncles have been, perished. But I went to the city, found my brothers and sisters in an orphanage home. I remember just putting my hands up in the air because it was what was dead inside of me felt like I was alive again in a sense. But then they couldn't keep me in the orphanage home because I was 10. They said, well, we are full, max capacity. We couldn't keep you. So I was a homeless kid, right, roaming in the streets. But I really felt the fact that they were alive gave me the purpose to live, the purpose to do more. So I took charge, and I just realized, hey, I don't have grandpa and grandma, no mom and dad. We have to figure out. I had my first job at 10 years old. I was a maid, washing clothes, ironing clothes, cooking and cleaning, you name it, I did it for $3 a month. And I never received a penny of that too. There's a lot of beatings and a lot of abuse. But I also really, because of my faith, I felt like at the end of it, I was going to make it somehow. I had just that feeling that somehow, if I kept a positive attitude, I was going to make it through.
Right. And you made it after that job to live with a family for a time period that you thought would be the answer to your prayers, right? But you suffered abuse with them as well. Jeanne, you witnessed so many horrifying things, and you endured, unimaginable things that no one, let alone a child, should endure. How did you begin to process all of this trauma and move forward with your life?
Thank you. A lot of prayers again. I have PTSD, as you can imagine. I had trauma. I remember one time I was because of the traumatic experience that I had endured. At first, was like survival. So every day was just let me survive a day. It felt like days felt like months. Months felt like years. It was a lot of heaviness on my heart. But again, because I grew up in a Christian family, my mother used to, and this might sound silly, she used forgiveness. She would tell us, if you're fighting with your siblings and if you don't forgive them because they stole your toy or if they've done something wrong to you, if you don't forgive them, no matter how much you pray, God is not going to hear your prayers. So I found myself trying to use the same concept to forgive the very people who had killed her.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, I don't know if this is, possible for me, but I wanted to forgive because I really wanted God to hear my prayers. And so I I started asking, I said, God, please give me the strength to forgive. And at one point, I heard so clearly the Holy Spirit telling me to forgive, so gently, forgive them. Forgive them. And I thought, C.S. Lewis is the one who said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, he said, forgiveness is a lovely idea for most people until they have to forgive.
Right.
And that was the same for me. When God said, forgive them, I said, well, let me tell you, I don't have any bones in this body that is capable of doing this thing that you ask me to do. And second round, forgive them. And I remember saying, God, I don't have it, but if you're willing, if you want to give me the courage and the strength to do so, I'm going to be obedient and I'm going to forgive. And I remember when I say, I forgave you for the rape, I forgave you for taking away my family, I forgive you for all the pain that you have caused me. It really felt like I was flying high up in the sky. It felt like I had this freedom that really, like, I went almost back to being that kid that was silly, that enjoys simple things. So really what forgiveness means is that forgiveness doesn't mean we forget what happened to us, or we excuse, or we minimize. It doesn't mean we minimize the pain. Forgiveness means that we're giving ourselves a gift to be free, to have the freedom, because there's so much potential that are held when our hearts are just in bitterness and anger and resentment. Many of us make ourselves sick when we hold on to, such anger. And we, pray that somehow they're going to wake up and come and apologize. Nobody came to apologize. But I did it because I felt like it was the right thing to do, to give myself the gift, with God's help, to be able to live the purpose and the life that He had designed for me to live. So forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. If you can't do it, if you believe in God and ask for, to help.
Are there some points along your journey that helped you be receptive to that, or were there some people in your life that gave you hope and a new sense of family that helped you get to the point that you could forgive?
I'm smiling because I met a sweet family in Washington State. That's where I went to for my education, and I met auntie and uncle. We call them auntie and uncle. They're not blood relatives, but they just gave me a sense of home, something that I yearned for so many years. So I started talking about the painful experience that I experienced, and it was my first time really having to conversation and openly. And they just listened, and they listened. They gave me hugs, cried through tears. I started writing the book that I wrote. I started writing it in Kinyarwanda, so in my native language. And writing is therapeutic, helps heal, right? And when I met my husband, Paul, he said, "Lady, you gotta go for counseling." So I did counseling. I did EMDR as well.
Okay.
Really to address. So again, there's part of it forgiveness, but there's also professional help that is available for anybody who suffers.
And you became friends with a woman that actually helped you go back to Rwanda to be with your siblings, and that had to have been therapeutic too.
Carrie, yeah, she's a good friend. She's more like she's a mom, she's a sister, she's everything.
Yeah.
She helped me being open to having conversation about what took place in Rwanda. And when I went back to Uganda, where I moved my siblings so in college I did like 3 jobs, making sure that my siblings will be taken care of. And she gave a lot of support. Many of them see her as mommy as well. So she's been such a wonderful woman in our lives.
We skipped over how you got to the United States. Can you share that quickly? And I feel like we didn't let people know.
I just flew over, just kidding. So my family, there was a family who actually survived Rwandan genocide. I came with our family. And so during, even after the genocide, aftermath of the genocide, there were still, people were coming. The perpetrators of the genocide would actually come in and start, terrorizing families and few times killing people too. So the family migrated to United States in 1998. I came to United States in 1998 and started school. I remember being on a plane, and the flight attendant, she asked me, she was, they serve the food and everybody's having their meals, and she gets to me and she said, what do you want? I didn't even understand the question to begin with, but she said something tomato. I said, okay, I'll have a tomato then. Tomato is a tomato in French, or I said tomato, and she brought me a cold can of tomato soup. That was gross. So from that time, I realized, boy, do I have to learn English. So, so I really took, English is my fifth language. I took it very, very serious. I read the same baby book that I read to my son when he was a baby. That's how I learned. I was a teenager, 14 years old, and learning the basic of English. So if I'm butchering English, you know why.
Definitely not. Yeah.
I had a lot of love. Many teachers who believed in me, many who encouraged me, many who saw my potential, because I thought, you know what? These kids, my siblings, are relying on me for their future.
Right.
So I've got to do this right. I've got to be educated. I've got to find the best job ever. So I worked really hard, including learning English.
Incredible. So let's shift to your more recent accomplishments. You worked really hard and you've been able to do some incredible things. You and your husband, Paul, founded the nonprofit 1 Million Orphans, devoted to providing sustainable education support to some of the most vulnerable children across the globe. Can you tell us what the goals of that organization are and how we can learn more about it?
Absolutely. Really, the 1 million orphans, so the 1 million because 1 million people who lost their lives. And it was the legacy of my, the compassion legacy of my parents, really, to honor them for the work that they've done in the community, for what they embodied, that embodiment of humanity. And looking at myself being that kid who lost my parents and being in the streets, I thought I wanted to give back in that capacity. So we support orphans. Right now, our focus is in Rwanda, East Africa in general right now. We have kids where we are providing education. So not only pay their school fees, but also feeding them, clothing them, paying for medical school, medical supplies and things like that. But I also want those kids to have a sense of belonging, because many of the orphans are really vulnerable. And we'll probably talk about, the things that I do. But for orphans, I really specifically wanted to make sure that we're giving them education, but also creating mentorship, giving them that village, that community that they need, that they can also learn so much and be leaders in their communities, in return be able to support somebody else. And you can, get on our website. We just moved to Arizona, term residency in Texas. We've been in Texas since 2012. We just moved to Arizona. I'm not a fan. I'm there because my husband. I'm there because my husband graduated from law school TSU, but I think we're gonna come back. I mean, yes.
So.
We feel like here is home. And being painted by President Bush, he painted my portrait. So it's a big deal.
That is a big deal. So in your work to really try to think about how to not just send the orphans to school, but to protect them. Are there things that you are consulting with governments or countries to do to try to make sure that their orphans, that the children are protected and less at risk for human trafficking?
That's a very brilliant question. Right now, there's so many closing orphanages, and that has to do with some of the recommendations that had been provided, not necessarily by me, but I've been very vocal on protecting vulnerable orphans. One, because I've testified at the Congress level where we trying to shape how kids are being sent into, international countries. And a lot of times we find out that kids they will be adopted overseas. One, there's a language barrier, and they have no way of connecting or knowing the law. So taking myself for example, I'm in the United States. I don't speak English. Anything could have happened, right?
Right.
Anything could have happened. So we find that when there's wars and conflicts, orphans suffer the most.
Well, and the family that actually brought you to the United States abused you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
So
anything
you
could
were
have happened.
vulnerable.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I've been really advocating and advising governments to study, to screen. Every child should have, especially orphans, should have a caseworker who's following, who has the knowledge of the policy. There should be systems in place to care for these children. So now we are witnessing many orphanages closing because a lot of human trafficking are actually happening in foster care homes, and even here in the United States, believe it or not. Also overseas, where kids are just being, people are coming in, let's take the kids,
Right.
and they're just selling them for, to exploiting them, not only for sexual exploitation, but also labor trafficking, and the worst, organ removal.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's just it's heartbreaking as a mother, as a human being, to know the things that are happening to these vulnerable children.
So you're the chairperson of the International Survivors of Trafficking Advisory Council, which is a critical office in the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Can you share what you do in that role and what the goal of that advisory council is related to preventing future trafficking?
Absolutely. This International Survivor of Advisory Council is, as you mentioned, in Europe. And because under the Human Rights Department, we are basically advising 57 countries on policy, anti-trafficking policies. There's a lot of publication that's been done, books being written. I've traveled to Europe multiple times, specifically in Vienna and Warsaw. I'll be heading to Poland next month as well for the human dimension, just to really advise countries on what to look for, and to make sure that those 57 countries are having policies in place, one for protection, prosecution, but also to partner with other organizations to provide support and also to empower survivors. When I joined, one of my goals was to have survivors centered on policy and human rights, obviously, to have the voices of people who have survived, whether it's labor exploitation, sexual organ removal, and so forth, and criminal exploitation, for all of those voices not only to be invited in these policy-making decisions, but to also be part of an organization, to be on a payroll, to where they're influencing the policies, because nobody knows a trafficker's mind like somebody who has been trafficked, We know the tactics. We've seen them. Now, especially nowadays, traffickers are savvy because of social media. They're recruiting at a highest level than ever before, and recruiting children, unfortunately, because we have this access to internet. It came with a blessing and a curse at the same time.
And as you said, it's an issue here at home in the States. It's North Texas is a pipeline for human trafficking, and it's something that we all want to believe isn't happening, but it's in our own backyard. What do you believe are the most pressing issues surrounding this issue today that we all need to know about?
I think really being aware, having awareness, I think if you know the statistics, it will blow your mind. If you know that Texas probably is on a higher level, Texas, California, and Florida, United States, our own country, we pour so much money in trafficking. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of money in trafficking, are pouring so much money, trafficking humans at every level. So the most pressing is that, human trafficking does not have any boundaries. It does not have any boundaries. But what I look for when there is a conflict, when there's a war, when there's poverty, when there's lack of knowledge, we see a lot of people who are vulnerable. Many women, especially for now, like Ukraine, many women from Ukraine, many children in Ukraine as well who have been trafficked. So the least we could do is be their voice. There are so many survivors or victims who have the voice, but they are not able to use their voices. So to create a place and a platform where they can really have their voices be heard, I think it's critical. And to learn more, I would encourage every single one of you to learn more. We have refugees. I remember a few years ago, I think it was last year, where I was speaking at the Axon Mobile, and people said, "What can we do?" There's so much we could do as a community. We have refugees who were coming from Ukraine or Afghanistan, sitting in hotels. You can teach their children English. You can cook them a meal, introduce them to the American, because eventually, if they are here, they're going to be part of our society. Right. They're going to be our citizens. And so to really pour into them, to do something where you help them, embrace this new culture, this new society is important.
I have so many more questions, but I want to be sure that we have time to answer the audience questions. So if you have questions, write them down and our staff will come around and pick them up. While we wait for some audience questions, I think everyone wants to know what happened to your siblings. Where are they? How are they doing?
They survived. There were two brothers, one older brother and a sister. They died in the genocide, and the young one, the 3-week-old, died with my mom. Also, that explains that genocide had no boundaries. Nobody was spared. But the rest of them, they survived. My sister, the twin sisters, one of them is living with me right now. She wanted to stay in Texas, and I said, absolutely not, you coming? I'm still the mama bear. So she feels like she's she's an adult, but she's my baby. But the rest of them are there in Rwanda. My twin sister, Jeanette, is in Uganda. She's doing well. They're married, they have children, except one. Everybody else has a kid or two. And I have only one because I spend my time taking care of them. But yeah, they survived. They're doing great. I told them, I said, I don't have the money to give you inheritance, but I can only pour into your education. So I put them through school.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're doing well. Some of them refused to go through. My brother, who was older than me, and my twin sister, basically, they took care of the young ones. So Yeah.
It's amazing, incredible that you all survived and were so brave throughout this horrific time. You mentioned quickly, and I didn't ask you about it, but you were painted by President Bush. Tell us about that.
I was.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you. It was exciting. I got a phone call, missed it. I was academic advisor, Lone Star College in Houston. And my husband walked into my office. We actually worked in the same office. We worked in the same college back then. And I got this email. I was about to swipe it into spam. And he runs into my office and he's, honey, did you see that email from President Bush? I said, who? No way, President Bush emailing me? And he said, it's real. I said, I was about to just put it in spam. He said, no, this is real. He wants to meet with us. And we met. He said he'll be honored to have dinner with me and my husband. And we had dinner in Houston. And he said he wants to paint it, to paint my portrait. And I was like, oh my goodness. Last time I was painted, it was my son, stick figure, and boom, that was it.
Yeah.
So he painted a beautiful portrait, and it was really to portrait of America's immigrants out of many one. So many of us, but he wanted to highlight that the work that we do here in the country and in the world.
How much you add to our country. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so glad he found you, and that was an incredible exhibit. It was at the Bush Library for a while, so some of us saw your picture there. It's when you came, you were 14 when you came to the United States. So, what challenges did you face, particularly regarding learning a new culture? Aside from tomato juice, right, or tomato.
Oh, it was hard. I ate cheeseburgers and French fries for so long because anywhere you go, French fries are the same. I just had a hard time trying to the taste. I was like, American food are just tasteless. I needed like a little bit more seasoning in the food, but no, I just took French fries and cheeseburgers at school. Had language barrier. I remember sitting in a classroom, spend hours, and I'll pick up few words. If we had a teacher who dictated, I'll have blank pages. I have one word here, and then skip. There'll be another word there. So yeah, language barrier it was harder with language barrier because as a kid, you want to make friends. You want to feel like you belong. So having a language barrier was very much challenging. Fun story. There was a young boy who asked me. He asked me out to go out. So I thought in my mind, with limited language, he just wants to go outside. I said yes. And as a teenager, he said, my mom is going to pick us up. I said, what? Pick us up? Where are we going? I said, we went out already. That's over. It's done with.
You said you speak 5 languages. What languages do you speak?
Swahili is fading a little bit somewhere. French, Kinyarwanda, and Kirundi. And I picked up English at 14.
Okay. Amazing. You spoke, a few minutes ago about what we could be doing to help the Ukrainian and Afghani refugees. But if you could, as everyone in the audience, what could we be doing in addition to that to help refugees in our community and immigrants?
Embrace them, invite them, help them really understand the culture. I think and refugees from all over the world too, not just from those locations, because they come with a lot of PTSD. When somebody picks up and just flees the country, there's a lot of trauma. And once you give them a place where they feel like they belong, even, simple as, hi, how are you? They might talk your ears off if they know English. but to really create the space that embodies humanity. I think we're missing that today. Where you can, compassion, kindness, and it starts with young, even young kids. I work at the college as a director of student services, but you can see there's a hunger of, students are, because of COVID, obviously, there's not a lot of interaction, but the minute you get to kind of bring them in, ask tough questions sometimes, the more they get to open. Once they know that you care about them, they're going to thrive. So every single one of you in a room, you can put on your teaching hat. You can be a professor, you could be a teacher, you could be, you have a role to play in our young children. There's one thing that Nelson Mandela said, that people, if we can teach people to love, and I'm paraphrasing, I forgot the quote exactly. It actually goes this way: if we can teach people to hate, we can teach them to love. Because love comes more naturally to a human heart than its opposite. So all of us, if you have a beating heart, look at another human being as you want to see yourself be seen. Because it starts with a simple lesson, and I made it myself a goal to embody that humanity. We need that more than ever before nowadays. So you can teach the people to love. One of the other encouragement is to really, another quote from Nelson Mandela, he said when he was exiting his prison, he said, if I did not forgive, I would have been held prison even though that he was free. Right. So forgiveness is a very important. I know there's so much, even when you look at countries who, whether they messed up or not, but you're receiving those people coming from those places, to have compassion towards them. Because once we paint a paintbrush of a nation or society or a group of people, we are part of the problem. We are all uniquely made and wonderfully made in God's image. And so to teach love and kindness is important.
See, we have several more very specific questions from the audience, but the woman who claimed you as her own and saved your life, did you ever see her again?
No. So just imagine, so they throw me in her hands, in her arms, and she walks with me, and I have so many questions for her too. I said, I want to know exactly who she is and why she came and saved me. So she holds my hands, and as we're walking, I'm like, I'm going to be asking her a lot of questions, and I hope she stays with me. I mean, she was glowing. But out of the sudden, bless you, she said to me, she said, I want you to go with these people. The same people who actually had machetes raised. I want you to go with these people, and I will be with you. And she disappeared. That was the last time I saw her.
Wow.
So I believe God sent me some angels to save me.
Wow. Can you explain how the Hutus ended up in the refugee camp outside of Rwanda when they were the perpetrators?
They were actually fleeing because of the participation. They were afraid that the new government, the Tutsi government, who were majority the Tutsis, would actually they were afraid being put in prison for what they have done, bless you. They were afraid that they could actually face consequences of that participation. So thousands and thousands fled the country. When you look at, they were probably closer to more than 2 million plus that fled the country.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Do you know how many Tutsis survived the genocide?
I think they've documented about 30%. So it is a big deal that I'm here today.
Yes, it is.
30% that survived.
And you've been back to Rwanda?
Yes.
And several times, or?
One time.
One time.
I want to go back. I want to go see. I haven't been back to the location where I grew up. I don't know if I have the strength to go there. I think I'll be, my heart will not take it.
Yeah.
But I go to the, other places except the location where I grew up. You saw, I don't know if you saw, like, there was the wall of my home. That was the only thing that was left. So I'm not brave enough to go back. There was also, it may be something that many people might have in your mind is how are the people who participated in the genocide living side by side with the neighbors who they killed their families. Rwanda had a court system called gacaca. And gacaca means at the root. So basically having a court system at a root level. And this where the Hutus who have participated in the genocide will come forward and ask for forgiveness. Forgiveness to the people they have killed their families. And if it was sincere, the government would actually take those people to, there's a place where they would actually kind of train them how to get back into the society. So you might be living next door to someone who have wiped out your entire family.
Wow.
Because there were millions of people who participated in the genocide, and there was no way to keep those people in prison. So forgiveness is one of the things Rwanda did at the grassroots to get these people back in our communities.
And what is the nation like today? Has it starting to heal?
Yes, absolutely. Rwanda is one of the things I'm very proud of, is that the way the new government led. There was no way of saying these people have killed my family, therefore I'm going to kill their families. Absolutely not. You would actually be thrown in prison. So apart from like that kind of like reconciliation, the government did another thing where Rwanda has about 62% of women in parliament.
Amazing.
When you put women in power, you get work done. We're peacemakers, so some of us are. So Rwanda is really one of those countries that led as an example of how a country can go from ashes to it's a beautiful country, but the leadership has been very strategic to make sure that the genocide does not repeat itself in Rwanda. It's one of the safest in East Africa, cleanest as well.
And there's no longer a distinction, or you're not allowed to speak about Hutu or Tutsis, right?
Thank you for reminding me of that. So we no longer carry racial identification cards. We are all Rwandans. I share that I was a Tutsi when I'm doing presentations like this, but most people, they introduce themselves, I'm from Rwanda. Nobody confirms their ethnic groups. That type of like division is no longer there, which is a beautiful thing. For somebody who fights for human rights, to just distinguish people as different because the way they look or the label that we put on them, I think it's ridiculous. And so as Rwandan, the country is being built by Rwandans. Both, obviously there will be groups who still talk about, the differences. We have the people who have participated in the genocide who are still in the Congo right now, who are actually causing a lot of problems for Rwanda, who want to come back to the same thing that they've done in 1994. But Rwanda stands strong to basically, fight back. So Rwanda is beautiful. If you can go pay a visit. Yeah. They have a memorial location to where all the 1 million people who have been buried. They've given many citizens like myself, if you find your loved ones where they, throw their bodies, if you want to bury them with respect, you have the right to do so. And that's another second thing that I'm not brave enough to do. I don't think I'll be able to function if I did, dug my family's life, bones, and I just don't think it's. My siblings wanted to do it. I say, you all can, but I can't. I want to remember them the way I that last day.
Jeanne, you have been through so much personally. You see so much in your work currently. You have such a sunny disposition. What gives you hope? What can we all learn from you?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
I'm gonna put paper forgiveness on everything. Really, I felt that I hit rock bottom in my life because of the PTSD, the trauma. I held on to anger and resentment. And at some point, it became my fuel. Because I woke up and I was like, I'm going to be mad about something. But that did not help. It's like, you take poison, you mix it up, take a sip, and you hope the person who have harmed you is dead, but you're killing yourself slowly. Forgiveness really helped me. And to be optimistic, to have hope. Yeah. Hope is one thing that once you lose hope and purpose, you've lost it. So to really be hopeful.
What are you hoping for our world today?
Peace. World peace. I'm hoping for peace. I'm praying for peace. That we can all embody that humanity, that we can look at each other in our eyes and say, I'm seeing another human being. I'm teaching my son how to, which he does so naturally, he has a compassionate heart, to be compassionate. Because every single one of you, every single one of us, we're walking through life. Life is going to be happening. But to really embrace, to join hands, hand in hand, to support one another. Our children are watching. Our young ones are watching. The way we lead, they're going to be stepping in our footsteps. A lot of the work that I get to do today, I do them because I watch my parents lead this way. Even at a very young age, I saw kindness, I saw compassion, and that's how I choose to live every single day.
Thank you so much, Jeanne, for sharing your story with us. Thank you for the work you're doing to make our world a better place. Please, everyone, help me thank Jeanne.
You're about to make me cry. I managed to.
Such an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Jeanne
Thank you.
will be, if you will let me, I'm going to escort her to the lobby, and she has copies of her book, and we'll be signing them in the lobby. But you could also drop by and say hi to her and have a conversation. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight. Let's go.